Thoughts on the Bible readings: 1 Samuel 24, Jeremiah 1, Matthew 12, for July 11th. 1 Samuel 24 verse 7 tells of David and his men hiding in the wilderness of En-Gedi, which means the eye of the fountain, or the eye of the wild goat, where Saul was pursuing him. Saul went into a cave to release himself. David's men urge him to slay Saul, as it seemed to them that God had delivered David's enemy into his hand. David tells his men that he cannot innocently lift his hand against the Lord's anointed. David stealthily enters the cave and cuts off the corner of Saul's robe. After this, he was ashamed that he had done this. Verses 8 to 15 speak of David calling after the king from a safe distance and relating to Saul what has happened. David says that there is no way that he would have killed Saul, and the proof was in David's hand. He claims that Saul was pursuing an insignificant flea. David claims that Yahweh will vindicate his righteous behavior. Verses 16 to 22 reveals Saul's pathetic response to David's plea and an acknowledgement of David's faithfulness and a declaration that God will continue to bless David for this reason. Saul says that he is sure that the Almighty will bring David to the throne. King Saul asks David not to retaliate against his family when David reigns. David swears an oath to Saul to that effect. We are in the first chapter of Jeremiah, introduced to one of Yahweh's long-suffering prophets. Jeremiah commenced his prophecy in the year BC 628 as a young man related to King Josiah, who was nearing the end of his short reign. Jeremiah continued his ministry beyond BC 588 when Jerusalem fell to Babylonian King Nebuchadnezzar. Jeremiah was the son of Hilkiah the priest, in all likelihood the high priest, and therefore cousin to King Josiah. His ministry within Judah lasted from the end of Josiah's reign, occasioned by his untimely death in battle with Pharaoh Necho, until the dissolution of the kingdom under the faithless and vacillating Zedekiah. Jeremiah played a central role in the unparalleled reforms of Josiah and was himself devastated by the premature removal of the king he loved. He was foreknown of God and chosen before his birth to be a prophet to plead with God's people to reform, and also to the surrounding nations, a task which, as youth, he found daunting. Nevertheless, he was strengthened to perform this in the face of persistent and hostile opposition. In Matthew 12 we have two incidents, both deliberately performed on the Sabbath day, illustrating that Jesus was indeed the Lord of the Sabbath, in contrast to the Sabbath having authority over our Lord Jesus. The first of these confrontations between the Pharisees and Jesus' disciples was whether the disciples had the right to pluck and eat the ears of grain. Jesus cites the precedent in David's eating of the shewbread, which our readings from 2 days ago highlighted. The second incident was the healing of the man with the withered hand. In all likelihood, the Pharisees had planted this man at the front of the synagogue in Capernaum as a challenge to our Lord. Would he heal on the Sabbath day, or not? This healing proved that our Lord Jesus Christ was Yahweh's chosen servant of Isaiah 42. These incidents are followed by grievous charges being leveled against Jesus of doing miracles by the power of Beelzebul, the lord of the dung heap, the prince of the demons. Jesus claims that this charge amounted to blasphemy against God's power, which was being flagrantly denied despite incontestable evidence that Jesus was from God. Then follows the lesson of the fruits. Our Lord Jesus declares that the type of tree we are is shown by the fruits, i.e. actions of our lives. Jesus' kindly words, actions, and healings proved that he was the Son of God. And their hatred, words, and enmity towards our Lord illustrates that they were acting from minds that were carnal in every respect. Our Lord would advance further incontestable proof of his sonship with the prophecy of his resurrection from the dead as the sign of Jonah the prophet from Galilee. See John 7 verses 50 to 52. The chapter concludes with the parable of the unclean spirit seeking a lodging place. It leaves its abode and starts to look for another house. But finding no place, it returned to its original home and found it to be swept clean. The spirit then found another 7 vile creatures to return and take possession of the original house. This spoke of John the Baptist and our Lord Jesus Christ purging the house of Israel. Only for the foul priests and Pharisees uniting to kill our Lord Jesus Christ. Matthew 23 verses 19-39. Lastly, the chapter records that Jesus' own family sought to rescue him from the trouble he had seemingly caused. His family were not impressed with his head-on confrontations with the nation's religious leaders. Perhaps they believed he needed rest and time to reflect on a better course of action and not antagonize Israel's leaders. Jesus tells his family that he is doing the work of his God and that those who choose to listen to his Father's word are his true family.